Very good. Well, good morning and welcome everybody and to members of the media. I think this is the first time we've had our catch-up this year, so it seems rather belated to say it, but a very happy new year to all of you in the media. You know that I value these catch-ups as an informal way to talk about anything. I'll talk about my priorities at the beginning and then open to you to questions. But once again, can I thank you for all that you do. The media is an important part of our thriving territory, so it's really important for me that we sit down every now and then and have a chance to talk. Just by way of opening, I wanted to just talk a bit about my priorities as we get into 2020, and then we can follow up a bit with any questions on the back of that. My priorities really as we go into 2020 are similar to in 2019, but I hope that we can make some faster progress on many of the areas. First off is around good governance. As always, I always talk about this, but this is really core to my role, but also core to the success of the territory, that it has the highest levels of good governance standards. And this year, working with the Premier and Cabinet, but also all of my team as well, looking at how we make sure that we take forward some key areas of institutional and legislative improvements. So an integrity in public life policy coming through to become an act, things like the ministerial code, some of those changes that we keep on talking about, but I really want to make sure that 2020 is the year of delivery on those. I can talk a bit more about some of those areas later. Ongoing is the priority about improving our security and justice in the territory at all levels. And that's everything from even actually reflecting this weekend, tragically, the two deaths that happened on our roads this weekend. And I just take a brief moment also to send my thoughts and my prayers to the family of those deceased. There is work underway through the RBIPF, through the Commissioner and his team, looking at the sort of measures that can be taken around both enforcement and applying the laws of the road. But also this is a whole community issue as well and a whole of government issue as well. But security and justice also has other areas that I will be prioritising during the year. In particular, looking at how we improve the effectiveness of our criminal justice system. I'm very pleased that we have agreed plans to take forward a new Halls of Justice. This will be a bringing together our courts to make sure that we have a world-class infrastructure to support our judicial system. That won't be delivered in 2020, but all of the groundwork needs to be done in 2020 around that. And we need to make sure that we keep on making our criminal justice system more effective, stronger in terms of how it operates, and supporting victims along the way. Just briefly, a particular area which I think we'll talk about here, but is a longer conversation, is about some of the sometimes hidden crimes in the community here. In particular, domestic violence, and it is a rather shocking statistic that almost half of our serious violent crimes, occur in people's homes. I hosted an event on Friday evening for the Family Support Network, a fundraiser for them, who do fantastic work to support some of the most vulnerable victims of domestic violence. But I want us to look, as a territory, how we support some of those people who are in vulnerable situations, and with the Ministry of Health, Minister Malone and his Permanent Secretary Davies there, and my team in the Deputy Governor's Office, we're looking at how we can support some of the activities to support some of those most vulnerable in our society. Also looking under security and justice at the ongoing building up of our capabilities as well. Later this month, there will be a team from the UK supporting our Royal Virgin Islands Police Force in building up the financial investigation skills. And that's an important area, that we build the capabilities of our police force to deal with the modern crimes. And an important priority for me this year will be getting the Police Act moving as well, so that we have a legislative framework for our police that reflects the challenges of the areas that they need to work on. Ongoing, third, is priorities around public service transformation. Now we've got a huge amount of work underway already. There are infrastructure challenges still, getting the buildings back to a fit state and even better state across our public service, but also improving the public service itself through a transformation plan which the Deputy Governor and his team are leading. I was delighted that last week was the culmination of a set of training that had been done for some of our future leaders in the public service, so we grow the capability of Virgin Islanders to take on the top posts in the future. That was supported by the United Kingdom as a leadership training programme for I think it was 37 on the first cohort of that. But this is an important thing about how do we actually develop the right leadership in the public service, develop performance management, develop the right codes right across the whole of the public service. So we really look at how we become an efficient, effective, even more efficient and effective world-class public service. Ongoing, and this is an important part of always my work and will always be top of my mind, is about our disaster management activity and disaster preparedness. Now, we always say we should always be ready, and that is the Department of Disaster Management's strapline. I think at the moment it's particularly important, a message to really think about being prepared and being ready all of the time. We often think that we get ready for the hurricane season, but actually if we look at the seismic activity in the region, this is an important moment to think, are we ready for whatever hazard may hit us at any moment? Don't leave it until May to start checking your families or your businesses or your communities' plans. Think about, are you ready to respond now? That's something we're very closely through the Department of Disaster Management monitoring the seismic activity. It's been happening across the region as well, and thinking through our own plans here, but also the ongoing plans to make sure that we improve our disaster management capabilities. This year we will be re-accredited through what's called EMAP, and we are currently the only, outside the United States, the only top-level accredited territory, and we want to stay at that level. So we will be taking forward, and I hope to get support in the House of Assembly for our Disaster Management Act, which puts in place a legislative framework to allow us to stay at that top level. We're also drawing in support from elsewhere as well. I was delighted that last week I signed a memorandum of understanding with the UK and with BVI to bring in extra search and rescue. It's called TSART, Territorial Search and Rescue Team. So our capabilities for searching primarily, if we had an event happen on land, our capabilities to build up how we'd be able to find people and search them and support them as well. And that's a cross-agency effort in there. So there's quite a lot of priority work that will be going on, as well as the day job, which is always there. And I will be looking across my group. I'm holding a session with my group later this week to talk about all of the priorities within that group. We had a session across the public service with the Premier and all of the ministers as well to look at the priorities across the public service as well. Just two final things as I close. One is about the preparedness as well, and I'm pleased that, very pleased with the work that Minister Malone and his team are taking in terms of making sure that BVI is adequately thinking through any measures it may need to take around novel coronavirus when we look at what's happening around the world. And there's important updates that are coming out from Dr. Georges and others, and Dr. Potter from the public health side and the ministerial team. And that's something that I stand ready to support, but hope that we stay virus-free here. And also, to end on a real positive area as well, I was delighted to welcome back two of our BVI stars as well. One of the things that is the highlight of my role is supporting talent and supporting talent to succeed and thrive, and where we can, using opportunities globally to do that. We have what is called the Chevening Scheme, which is one of the top scholarships globally. It includes presidents and CEOs and top positions from all around the world as alumni. And we had two from the British Virgin Islands, Hakeem Creaky and Brittany Smith, who went on it last year and got scholarships in the United Kingdom to do that, but also joined that alumni network of world leaders and world influencers and world shapers. And for me, that sums up a lot about BVI, that we play in that top team, and rightly so. And I was delighted that those two both came back, committed to going forward with their development, and achieved distinction as well, which was fantastic. Now I'll stop there because I'm sure there's lots of other areas that colleagues wish to talk about, but I thought I'd give a brief flavour of my priorities this time as we talk through. But I'm happy to take any questions on any of those areas. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Governor Kathy Richards, and Happy New Year to you from us as well. I want to start you off on something that you did not make any mention of, and that is the UK now being out of the European Union. I need to hear your thoughts on that, and should the people of the British Virgin Islands be too much of a concern about this aspect of what's happening in the UK.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. So hopefully people saw some of the videos and messages that I put out last week. I did a daily countdown in the run-up to what's called Brexit, Britain's exit from the European Union. That happened on Friday, Friday evening, and the UK is now outside of the European Union. But there's some important messages for people in the BVI in terms of what it means for the territory. The UK's gone into what it calls now a transition period. So essentially it is still all of the rules and the procedures of the European Union remain until the end of this year, until the 31st of December. So for people thinking about if they're travelling to the European Union or they're working in European Union countries, nothing changes on that front. And within that period, the UK will be negotiating then what is the future partnership approach with the European Union. There's some key things, and the messages I put out emphasise some of these about, particularly here, what does it mean? Well, for British passport holders and British Overseas Territory passport holders, the same arrangements apply, and that's an important part of continuity. Similarly on trade during this period as well. And also, what is most important is that I, the Premier, all ministers of government, are in regular discussion with the United Kingdom to make sure that BVI's interests are part of the discussions and ongoing. That's led to some things that are very important across the overseas territories. For example, the United Kingdom Prime Minister guaranteed, and actually got it as part of the negotiations with the European Union, that any funding that the EU gives to any territory, so including in the BVI, where we benefit from some European funding, that funding is guaranteed to keep going from the European Union. So there's been lots of discussions ongoing. There will be more discussions ongoing. There's also lots of opportunities for both the United Kingdom and BVI, as trade deals or trade arrangements can be opened up right across the world, and I hope that BVI will take full advantage of those as well as part of a player with the United Kingdom. So there's a lot to come, but also a message of reassurance for people here that many of the things stay as they were, definitely until the end of the year, and a strong commitment that the UK is working with BVI for the best interests of the territory.
You talk about funding continuing. Is it beyond the end of the year as it relates to the overseas territories and the European Union?
Yes, so anything any project that is currently being funded from the European Union will continue regardless of the length of the project time. We don't have that many here. It's different in some of the other territories, but to take one example, the European Union funded, I think it's 2 million euros. I may have to check whether it's dollars or euros, but I'm pretty certain it's euros, which actually works out about the same in dollars, to help fund improvements to our disaster management shelters. That funding will continue, so we don't have any cut-off on that. The programme of work that's already underway in those shelters will continue regardless if it goes after that time frame.
Morning, so Zan Lewis, ZBVI Radio. I noticed that the Holistic of the Recovery and the RDA is not listed among your priorities. I don't think the RDA was mentioned, but what you're saying now is coming at the point when there is no CEO of the RDA. And also in light of recent statements you made that you sympathized with his decision. Are you saying, sir, that basically you think the RDA CEO was forced out of that position which he held because you sympathized with his decision, and you also mentioned he was not getting the necessary support? He was forced out in your mind?
So just firstly on overall priorities, recovery is absolutely critical for the territory. Recovery and development. We don't want to just recover back to 2017. We want to be in an even stronger position. And that running through every single priority that I talked about, when we talk about security and justice, we want the Halls of Justice project, we want the infrastructure to be recovered and developed even better. When we talk about disaster preparedness, one of our most critical things is how do we prepare most effectively is by getting our infrastructure, getting our buildings rebuilt, making it stronger. If, God forbid, we were faced with another disaster, an earthquake or a hurricane, we have confidence in our power, in our buildings, in all of our infrastructure. So recovery and development is absolutely critical and is really, really important this year. In terms of the RDA is also a hugely critical agency, and it's as the government has chosen through the RDA Act, it's the key implementer of the government's recovery and development plan. In terms of Paul Bailey, I put out a statement previously around Paul Bailey's resignation. I have nothing really further to add to that. He's still in role, so there is leadership at the RDA at the moment, and I'm pleased that he's taken that through for that period of transition.
I understand you made a statement, sir, but there are certain things in your statement that was not clear. And I believe our role is to find out from you to further explain what you said.
Indeed. Yes.
What is not clear is that you sympathize with his decision. That can mean many things. I'm asking you, please, so what do you mean by that when he sympathized with his decision and was not getting the support from government? You made a statement, yes, but those issues, what are you talking about?
Yes, well, it's for Paul Bailey to talk about his own personal, decision that he made. But in terms of the statement that I put out, Paul Bailey was recruited recruited at the time. He was actually interviewed by both the leader of the opposition and the then Premier as well, as part of it, that interview process. But he was recruited to lead an organisation that had an ambitious agenda for our recovery and development. He's come to the decision that is in a different position now, and I sympathise with his decision on that basis.
You're not answering the question, Governor, but I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you.
Malik McPherson, the Island Sun newspaper. Governor Jasper, you mentioned there's a trade opportunity now with the Brexit situation. Yes. Would you please explain what exactly you mean in terms of trade? Because economic diversity is right now a topical issue here in the territory.
Yes.
And so I think it will be comforting for residents to hear of the opportunities that you see on the horizon. Yes,
definitely. Well, first off, I always believe BVI has incredible potential. And we just look at the talent we have here, the businesses we have here, the niches we've carved out in world markets, whether that's tourism or financial service or other areas. So I think there's huge potential here. In terms of what Brexit means, so just to go back a little bit, when as Britain as a member of the European Union, it was essentially part of the arrangements of the European Union's trade agreement. So any trade agreement was a European Union trade agreement. The United Kingdom couldn't do independent or separate trade agreements. Now the opportunity is for the United Kingdom to look at trade agreements anywhere around the world and with anyone and on any items that it wishes to do as it goes through this next period. And there's an opportunity for the BVI to think how best does it want to position itself within that. So where does it wish to explore new markets? What are the kind of areas where it could benefit from aligning or joining up in different areas? Those are very early discussions, but I think there's some important areas that I hope over the next while the government of the BVI and the government in the UK will continue discussing about how we maximise the opportunities here.
Further on Brexit,
yes.
The financial services sector is being under attack. We recently had blacklisted by France, which is
yes.
an EU member country. One of the fears when the entire Brexit matter was first announced here was with the UK out of the EU, what sort of buffer would the territory have against EU member countries coming after the territory's financial services sector? As governor, what can you say in this regard?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. So first off, the EU makes its decision on blacklisting through the group that they have. There's a code of conduct group. I know and applaud the work that the Premier has done and his team, both on former Premier and this Premier, to make sure that legislation has been put in place around economic substance and some of those key areas. The United Kingdom will no longer be in the room when those decisions are made, but the United Kingdom stands with the BVI in terms of its interests and supporting and promoting those. So the UK support will still be there, but the UK won't be in the room when those decisions are made in the future. But I think it's important for BVI to think through how does it approach some of these issues, and it has got a track record of staying at the forefront of financial services, and I have confidence that will continue.
Governor Jasper, Ron Grant of 24 Media, as always, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you. You opened your statements with one topic of issuing sympathy to the families of the recent victims in the accidents that occurred recently. accident investigation and fatalities across the territory has been an ongoing problem. As governor, what measures have you been in conversations about, whether it be with the Royal Regence Police Force, as it pertains to road safety for pedestrians, or do you have any particular messages for residents as it pertains to that particular issue?
Yes. So I know that it's something that is a very active discussion. The Commissioner of Police is looking at the measures and what his police force can do. But road safety is really everybody's responsibility. It's how people drive on the road, how they interact on the road. It's also about the infrastructure as well and how we get the roads in a stronger position in terms of whether that's potholes or the design of it as well. So there's really a message for everybody that being on a road it's a communal activity. You know, everybody needs to think about how they take their own safety. The police are one part of that, but really the police aren't the ones who are going to be solving it. They can't guarantee your safety on the road and shouldn't be. Your primary responsibility is yourself and how you interact with other road drivers out there as well.
In addition, you recently signed a memorandum of understanding as it pertains to both land and sea protection of residents. What exactly is your hope moving forward for such a very pivotal signage?
So that's the Territorial Search and Rescue MOU that you're referring to. So this is part of essentially improving our capabilities should we have disasters. Now those can be small scale or they can be large scale. We have a fantastic marine organisation in terms of VISAR, who the Virgin Islands Search and Rescue, and one of the top capabilities in the region in terms of our ability on the water. But we also have other agencies out on the water as well. So if we look at the airport, if we had an aviation incident, if we look at customs who are out on the water as well. But particularly on land, we don't have very strong capabilities for search and rescue at the moment, or well, we do have capabilities, but they're not to the level that I would like them to be at. So what the UK has done is to fund us some equipment, some training, and we are pulling together through the leadership of DDM, the Department of Disaster Management, the capabilities through a territorial search and rescue approach for how we would be able to respond. Now that could be a missing person, as we've had in the past, and how do we pull agencies together to search people. Or it could be, an incident happens, like a building collapses, and we need to be able to find people and search for them. Or it could be, an incident on the seas as well. But this is a critical part of improving our own capabilities here.
Governor, the cybercrime bill went through the House late last year.
Yes.
It was debated on, unanimously passed in the House of Assembly. Following that, went through many stages. It's now in your hands.
Yes.
I believe the Premier, when you're speaking some time ago, saying that it's more important to have this bill in place now, and people need to stop playing games. It's in your hand now for it to be ascended. What's holding up the bill? It's in your hands now, so what's the problem?
Yes, so I've got the bill for assent, as with any bill, after the House of Assembly. The bill is an important bill. It includes areas in there about how we protect children online, how we tackle issues like fraud or people who are, abusing the online space. It also has some very, very important areas that have been flagged to me and to the Premier as well about speech and what is the right level of speech online, and including for the media as well, in particular for the media. Now those are important issues. What is the right of the media to cause inconvenience or annoyance is one of the wording in there. Is it right or wrong that a journalist could cause inconvenience? And those are some of the issues that are being debated within that. So the Premier is aware of the issues. I've written to him and we're in correspondence on that. And as he responds, I'll consider that and then make a decision as to how we proceed on it.
When those correspondence was submitted to the Premier?
When was it? We've been in correspondence since it was passed through the House, so I think I wrote to him before, I think it was at Christmas time it passed.
So this correspondence have not been, nothing happened in this year, that's what you're saying?
No. The Premier and I meet regularly. We also write to each other.
On that
yes,
issue.
On that issue we've been in regular correspondence on it. But it wouldn't be right for me to go into the ins and outs of everything the Premier and I talk about, but it's, yes, we're in active correspondence on it. I hope to be able to talk through those issues or come to conclusions on those issues and make a decision soon.
Governor Jasper, you have shared responsibilities for Her Majesty's Prison.
Yes.
There were some recent headlines about some items being discovered there and so forth. Can you give us an update on prison reform?
Yes. So as your question rightly says, the prison is an area of shared responsibility with the Minister for Health and Social Development. And roughly the areas that fall under me are around the security side of it, and the administration issues fall under the Minister for Health and Social Development. As ever in a prison, it is security and the integrity of the building is very important. We have had issues where things have got into the prison, be that drugs or phones or weapons that people may have made. I'm pleased that the superintendent of the prison, Mr. Gard, has taken quite an active approach, a very active approach to improving the standards at the prison, the operating procedures, the staff training, and there are regular searches to ensure that any of those things are found. Obviously, I can't talk about the operational details of those, but there is a always regular program underway to improve the security arrangements at the prison.
Hi, Governor. Governor Jasper Kamal from BBA News. I wanted to talk about recently was just mentioned in terms of the improving capabilities for disaster management, more specifically search and rescue in territory.
Yes.
In light of the recent earth tremors are being impacted close to the territory, are there any specific measures being put in place in the event that one does impact the territory head on?
Well, this is really about our constant preparedness. So in terms of specific measures, what I've gone through and tested with the Department of Disaster Management is things like our sirens working. So they were tested a short while back. We have rebuilt the siren network across the territory as well. Which, if we have an earthquake in the region, one of our risks is tsunami. So we will be exercising as what's called Carib Wave, the tsunami exercise, which we do every year. We're also going through plans with the emergency services that how do they deploy and make sure they can make as much noise as possible, to put it crudely, so people are in an area where they can get notice as quickly as possible. We're also doing enhanced messaging, and the DDM, if you follow both the DDM and the DDM app, which if you haven't downloaded it, I encourage every member of the public to download it. It's a very good app, gives you those live alerts of what's happening. For example, people will hear about an earthquake somewhere, like in Puerto Rico recently. Actually, it's important for us to know, is there a tsunami risk with that? And if there is, the timescales are quite short. How do we respond? But it's also important for us not to panic. We need to be confident that we're ready, follow advice, know what our plans are, know we've taken all the right measures, and not jump on necessary, the reporting that isn't through the authoritative channels. So the BVA DDM app is a really important one that I would recommend. Then we go back to some of the things, and as Zan touched on, the recovery and the infrastructure is really important as well. One of the most important things is that we have more confidence in the infrastructure that we have in the territory should something happen, and that's something that is important, that we build up the infrastructure, we build up the pace of the recovery and development so that should we be hit by anything, we know that we've got more confidence in our buildings, our power, etc., the things that are there. And then finally, just to repeat the sort of more personal message to everybody, is to, we live in such a fantastic place, but we also are in a region that has hazards. And that doesn't mean we should walk around scared the whole time. It shouldn't mean at all that people shouldn't come to see us or, visit or set up business here. But it should mean that we're prepared and we're vigilant and we think through our own plans and we think through how we'd respond should something happen.
Governor, the Attorney General,
Yes.
his contract ends in this month. Are we correct in saying that?
His contract, yes.
Has he indicated an intention to use or probably wanted to renew this contract?
So, as with all public appointments, there's a process that it goes through. With the Attorney General, it goes through what's called the JLSE, the Judicial and Legal Services Council. It would be inappropriate for me or anybody else to comment on that appointment process, or any individual that may or may not have put into to become the Attorney General. So that process is underway, and as the JLSE considers it, I will then take my decision after JLSE's advice. But the Attorney General is an absolutely critical institution in terms of his office, his chambers, and the advice that he provides. He gives frank and fair advice to government, and I'm hugely grateful for all that the current Attorney General, Mr. Aziz, has done and is doing, but it would be inappropriate for me or anyone else to comment on the appointment at the moment.
The third district representative some time ago expressed grave concern about how the monies from the UK have been allocated to the governor's office, to the governor's house. What I'm speaking about for repairs.
Right.
I think the last time over $400,000 was spent for repairs following the hurricanes. They have
Right.
to figure out. But his concern is that funds to help with the governor, funds to the governor from the UK need to come through the government quarters instead of going straight to the governor's office or the governor's house or wherever, right? So he was expressing concern that the money should pass through government first before it comes to you, instead of going directly to you. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. You're aware of what I'm talking about, and what are your views on that?
Yes, well, I mean, the honourable member who raised the issues can explain more about his thoughts on it. There's different pots of money that come to the territory. There's some that go direct to the government in where we have agreed MOUs, so for training or equipment or things. I talked about the TSAT one, and that is supplies and training will be going to DDM to manage. There's others that are for targeted reasons. So this house, for example, as an example, is the responsibility of the government of the Virgin Islands. But the government of the UK took a decision to support when we were in the early days after the storm, because this house was providing a function of being both my house as well as an operational base. We were running disaster meetings here. We had the military here. We had lots of support being run from here. So the UK government very kindly, to take it off the need for BVI in those immediate days after the storm, repaired the roof and got things moving. BVI government have then put in for the rest of the works to the office. You can see works underway and money here. Then there's other pots of money that are for specific reasons. So the United Kingdom government has given £10 million as part of the arrangements to support the operational expenses of the recovery, and that's going through the Recovery and Development Agency. So it's really about what the money is for. I'm accountable for UK money when it comes here, so that money is channeled through me, because I am responsible to the UK Parliament and to the UK about it. So in terms of the honourable member saying it should go somewhere else, under accountability terms, it's how it works. It's how it works all around the world, wherever their money is from the UK, where somebody is directly accountable, comes into my office and then is allocated out in the most effective way.
Governor, Kathy here again. The current government is just about 2.5 weeks away from its 1-year anniversary in the administration of the British Virgin Islands. To your assessment, how has been their performance over this 1-year period?
Well, it's not for me to assess the government. That's for the job of the media, so I'm going to ask you to do that. That is your job to hold, and it's the job of the public to do that as well. But I think there's some things that I would say about where we are as a territory, more importantly, at the moment. So 2020 is a challenging year. It's a challenging year, but also a year full of opportunity. For me, I think we need to make sure that we seize those opportunities. We have a recovery and development that I believe needs to increase pace, and we have the opportunity to do that. We have infrastructure that we need to improve. We have the opportunity to do that. We have governance standards that are not at the level that they should be for a territory that has so much opportunity, and we need to improve those. So all of those areas and the other areas that I talked about, really this is about how do we actually make those improvements that people have talked about, and the things that people say, how do we actually deliver them this year? So for me, in terms of a territory as a whole, I hope 2020 is a year where we say, how are we really going to improve the governance standards? Are we really going to say recovery and development is happening and is happening? It is obviously happening, and there's been huge work, and particularly from businesses, from communities. But can we really say we've taken that leap in the territory on recovery and development, in governance, in the public service, etc., on those areas? So there's a lot to do, is what 2020 I think will be about. I look forward to it coming to fruition.
You mentioned improvement in governance standards.
Yes.
Any specific areas you are particularly referring to or concerned about?
Yes. Well, I think that core for me, and I've said this before, is the institutions of this territory should be supported to be, the institutions of governance should be supported to be at the top level. This is it's a small place, a small place that has a global impact, but that puts even more pressure on those institutions. So how do we strengthen those institutions? How do we make decisions more transparent? Like, for example, under the previous government, we made cabinet decisions transparent, just as one small step. But how do we make sure that decisions are transparent, that contracts are very transparent, how they're done, in terms of whether that's tender waivers or other things? They may be justified, let's explain them. How do we make sure that there are clear standards for how people operate? Integrity in public life policy I've talked about, ministerial code I've talked about, putting forward the Procurement Act, for example. There's a host of things that we can do to say that actually we are raising the standard of governance in this territory, we are supporting those institutions, supporting the public to hold us to account collectively. So when you ask that question next time, you're not asking me, you're asking the public. And the public have the information to say, yes, okay, I can see what's happening, and I can give an informed view on that. And if not, or if they're not happy with it, there's the right institutions to go to ensure that they can be addressed.
Governor, you just asked a rhetorical question. You said, how are we really going to make sure that recovery and development is keeping pace? We were at a press conference recently with the opposition, and they said that the BVI is losing sympathy as it relates to getting donations and support for recovery. Are you aware of this? And do you think if this situation is true, it makes the matter a little more difficult?
Well, it's not for me. I didn't see the opposition comments, so I won't comment on what the opposition has said, and it's not for me to get involved in particular comments from politicians. But I think as a territory, we have what it takes to recover and develop. We have the structure in place. We have a plan in place. I think there's more we could do to make sure that we take decisions to move forward on that. We are now 2.25 years on from the hurricanes. That means that some of the early opportunities that were there may not be there, and sadly we've seen other tragic events happen across the world as well. We look at the Bahamas, in terms of what they were affected by. But really, recovery and development is in our hands. It's in our hands to make decisions to move forward and to get things moving at the pace that we want, and that's what I hope to see.
Just to follow up on that comment, Governor, how possible do you think would it be for government now to be able to fund this recovery and development that's in our hands, considering the fall-off that we've seen from financial services last year and all of the other pressing matters that the government is already strapped to provide for?
Yeah. Well, it's really for the Minister of Finance to talk through government budgets. That's his role, or the Premier, Minister of Finance, to do that. Just going back to the structures that were set up, part of that, and part of the loan guarantee from the United Kingdom, was to take away that risk in a way, and to say, okay, we can bring money in quickly into the territory to help do a quick recovery. How do we give confidence on financial services? Well, we need to actually invest sometimes to build that confidence, to have good roads, to have good internet, to have good electricity, so that businesses can thrive here. So some of those decisions are linked. The loan guarantee is an offer from the United Kingdom to essentially take out the risk level, because it's under from some of those decisions, so that the government can then bring in the money to get the recovery and development moving, get the investments needed in there. But the individual choices, that's really for the Minister of Finance to talk more about.
Now, before we continue, guys, we have time for one more question.
Serena will be
Yes.
again. To continue speaking about the recovery, what is going on with the loan guarantee? Does government still plan to take it and accept it? I know the last time we heard about it, the government submitted the
Yes.
And it was significantly reduced from what it previously had been. So I'm wondering, is that act passed? Is it in effect now? Has the UK accepted it? And where are we with the loan guarantee?
So just to clarify the question, the Act is the plan, I think, the revised recovery development plan. The Act is the House of Assembly's Act or in terms of the Recovery Development Act. So the loan guarantee discussions are ongoing. Really, I can't say more than that at the moment. It's a discussion between the Premier and his team and the United Kingdom government in terms of the ongoing discussions that are there. I hope that progress is made rapidly on it.
Governor, let me ask the last question. Some time ago you made mention of a special report to be coming to you soon. I'm not too sure. I believe it was the prayer pack. You said a special report will be coming to you very soon, and as soon as you get it, you'll make it public.
So let me help you out here, Zan. So that is the Auditor General's report, and I believe you're talking about BV or BVI Airways.
BVI Airways.
Yes, okay.
What's the position? It said it will be coming before you very soon.
Yes.
And as soon as that's a few months ago, and you're going to make it public.
So it will be coming to me very soon. I have, once it comes to me, there's a period under law which is a maximum of 3 months before I make it, before it goes to the House of Assembly. It is the House of Assembly who receive the report before it goes public. But my commitment is that I will as I get it, I will make sure that it goes.
2 months ago, you said very soon.
Yes, there's this is really for the Auditor General to talk through, but I know she and her team, and I give her full praise, have been working very hard. There's been a lot of questions, as you would expect, on this issue, and she's been making sure that she gets all of the information she can to then write her report. That report, I know she is concluding, and then it will come to me formally, and then at that point I will consider the next steps. But that commitment that I said before is that I believe all of these reports should be public. That's important, and it goes back to what we were talking about the public being able to have the right information as well. So that commitment still stands.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for coming to the catch up with the Governor. Any last words, Governor?
No, just to say once again, thank you very much to all from the media, also out to the public who are listening as well. And whilst we're in February now, I do once again wish you all a happy year and successful 2020. Thank you.